So up until this point, we knew that when Takemichi went back to the present timeline, his past body just kind of continued the life until he goes back. What I didn't realize was how drastic it was, because I just kind of assumed when he left the past, he would continue to act the way he was until something changed and it was an unforeseen circumstance. But the fact that he pretty much autopilots and loses pretty much all of the heart, all of the humanity, to the point that he can get roped in on almost cheating on his girlfriend with not just a random bimbo or anything like that, a pretty powerful name, because she's trying to get back at her man for showing basically no compassion towards her. Takemichi, if he did already have it hard enough, I mean, it's pretty difficult knowing that you have to not only balance the past and the present, because you have to try to navigate the past. When something big changes or something is about to throw you for a loop, you go back to the present. But as you do that, your autopilot self could ruin all of the progress that you made. The more I watch of this show, the more I'm interested in its time travel mechanic, because I'm just imagining there's going to come a point where Takemichi's in the middle of something extreme. And just so happens the brother's going to be there, or someone else he's going to change the future of will allow him to jump easier, right? There's going to come a point where he's going to jump into the present, and because even if he's only gone for, say, 10 minutes, right, he gets an answer, he goes back, the autopilot's going to screw it up, isn't there? It's going to come a point where he's going to say the wrong thing when he's not there, and it's going to cause even more disruptions. There's a lot of ways for this to go wrong, and on one hand, his time travel mechanic's pretty handy. On the other hand, yeah, this ain't going to be good. Now, the most interesting question I had was what was going to truly change Mikey into being a scumlord from the delinquent that he currently is, and this episode tells us as such. And that's Draken. Once Draken's gone, Mikey will no longer have a heart, because Mikey's a pretty cold individual with a very bubbly personality. He lacks empathy, he lacks the ability to feel other people's feelings, so when a mother and father are emotional and freaking out because your gang is the reason my daughter was raped and nearly killed, there's a character like Draken who will bow and ask for forgiveness and will take the blame, because any logical person will say, well, our gang is the reason. If she wasn't associated with this gang, none of this would have ever happened, right? But there's characters like Mikey who will freak out saying, you don't have to bow, why do it? And the fact that there's a character who can literally force this man, arguably one of the most powerful individuals we've seen in Tokyo Revengers, into submission, and actually have him not get mad but just say, yeah, you're right, my bad, let's go eat. It really does show it. I mean, this is a character who, when he goes out for dinner, he gets the kids' meal, and if it doesn't have a flag, he gets upset. Once he eats, he falls asleep. He's a child in a lot of ways, most likely due to a lack of parental figures in his life, and I think Draken acts as pretty much not only a big brother, but also a father, but also a best friend, and sort of mentor all at the same time. And if he ends up dead, there's nothing that can change that, right? We know that Mikey lost his brother. That's one of the reasons that he hasn't appealed to Takemichi, refusing to back down. So it feels like, someone like Draken and even Takemichi will probably rise to that occasion as well, be someone that he looks to quite a lot. You need those types of role models in order to keep someone who could become very off the rails in line. And I think that's what makes it so interesting, is you can really see the dynamic flowing, and even in a group as rowdy and dangerous as this, there are certain people you would never cross, and I'm liking how rather than it just being like what we started the series with, the people like that bastard with the baseball bat who was going to kill Takemichi, rather than it just being a bunch of assholes, there's some people who might have got caught up into this situation because of a lack of family and friends. Maybe it's for money, or maybe it's just because that's their lifestyle. There's a wide variety of personalities, and rather than making Draken just this hot-headed, horrible person, he's someone who probably is going to do a lot of questionable things, but there is a core characteristic that there's compassion in his heart, and rather than just randomly hurting people because it doesn't hurt me, he understands when a father is pissed off for obvious reasons, you don't stoke the fire. You say, we are responsible, and we have to, respect your wishes. It's something that I really like about this series, and I think the autopilot mechanic is going to be very interesting because, on one hand, you could argue, well, as long as he's, in his room or he's, not around other people, the autopilot might not do that much harm if he's gone for short intervals. But the issue is that when he's gone from the present timeline, his body's in a comatose state that Nato has to take care of. So it's not only do you have something struggling with the past where your body will autopilot and just continue on and might disrupt the flow and the progress that you're making, the present can just kind of destroy your body. What happens if there's a power outage? What happens if, like, he's literally on life support? Or what happens if, Nato's like, oh shit, I don't have enough to keep him going. I really hope he comes back soon. It seems to me that the only way for Takemichi to jump forward and backwards is him activating it. I doubt the brother touching his hand when he's in a comatose state will bring him out, because if so, that could cause a lot of issues, but then again, I wouldn't put it past this series. This is one of those episodes that I can understand why. I had some people tell me that for a lot of manga readers, last week's episode is around the point in the content that they really got invested. I've loved it since episode 1. But there is a change in formula with last week, and this week just, the humor's alive and well. I like how, his girl kind of smacked the living shit out of him for obvious reasons. There's that humor, there's the darker, but there's also the plot twist and the uncertainty of where the time travel mechanic will go, and it just feels like the content itself is getting better. The only thing that's disappointing about this episode is unfortunately the censorship, and I didn't figure there would be censorship just because I thought it was kind of obvious why things were going to happen. And it's one of those situations where I understand why it happened, given, the manji on their uniform is very similar to that of a Nazi swastika. They're not Nazis, they're not anything like that. It's just like in Japan, up until the Olympics were set to be held there was a lot of symbolism that looked very familiar to that of World War II, and they ended up removing it because while in Japan it didn't have the same significance as it did in the West and other countries, they recognized that unfortunately shitty people made a symbol that used to be for peace into something that has been designed for hate and discrimination. And what the anime did is they either they blur it out with lines, or the thing that really annoyed me was that they freeze the shot. As a character's putting on their jacket, you'll hear the ruffling. You can tell there's animation playing, but because it shows the manji, you don't get to see it. But I wish they would have just did what all TV series do. A disclaimer before the episode starts. Hey, there's a symbol in this show that's very similar to X symbol. We have no relation to this. It's a fictional story not meant to promote hate or anything like that. Throw a disclaimer like every other Western show does and avoid the controversy, but one of those things that's just distracting. I just wish either just blur the whole thing or stop freezing it and stuff like that. But I guess we'll see. I mean, it really should only happen when they're in their uniforms, but given the fact that there's going to be all-out gang fights, I do worry about how it's going to look and how many freeze frames we'll have where they don't want to show the side of one of their shoulders because it has manji on it that looks a little too like something else, right? So we'll see where it goes. But I mean, this episode was incredible. The things that bothered me about the episode was just post-production, nothing about the actual episode. So it will be interesting to see how they handle it in future episodes. I mean, maybe we'll get lucky and there will be more scenes without them in their uniforms, but I guess we'll see. But I think Draken at this point is probably my favorite aspect about the show. As much as I love the time travel mechanic in Takemichi and, the relationship with the brother in the past and the present, I mean, there's something about a guy who, by all rights, should be one of the most hateable characters in a gang. He's one of the most respectable, even if some of the things he says or does, the way he walks over certain people, there's a level of authority and maturity there that makes his perspective and how he's kind of like, he's a lightning rod. All of the ferocity of Mikey that could cause a disruptive storm gets sucked into Draken, and Draken puts him in his place or makes sure no one touches him. So I really hope we save him. I mean, it would be disappointing if he doesn't end up making it, but if that happens, that would just mean Takemichi has to rise to Draken's role, which could also be a very good plot point, right? Overall, incredible episode of Tokyo Revengers, though. I mean, this show's just getting better and better every single week. People who have yet to start it because the season's packed, I think are going to be shooting themselves in the foot once they realize how big the show's probably going to get by the time it wraps up, right? Let me know your thoughts and feelings down below, your favorite moment. Where do you think is going to go with that whole gang war after some pretty shitty things happen? If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, share your support, and hit that subscribe button if you happen new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.